And one day I went into a bookstore in LA called Book Soup, one of the last great independent bookstores, and I used to go in there a lot, and I would go in the mystery section and take my books and turn them out, face out. And this time I saw that Bob Crace's books were face out, so I know he had been in there right now. Anyway, there's a guy in the aisle, and he was squatted down looking at a lower shelf, probably the H's. And so I was working on my books, and of course I said to him, "Hey, have you tried this guy?" And I was holding up one of my books, and the guy looked up, and it was Mick Jagger. And, he was putting together a whole lot of books. I don't know whether he's going into a tour or whatever, rehab, whatever. But he was gathering a lot of books, and so he said, "No, I haven't, and I'll try it." And then, of course, I was in a jam because I hadn't told him that's me who wrote that book. But then I said, but I would treasure the idea of having signed the book to Mick Jagger, so I said, "Actually, I wrote it, and can I sign it for you?" So I signed it for him, and of course, now I'm a Rolling Stones fan, but the thing I wanted to mention about that is just lucky opportunity. I've met a fair number of old musicians, from the 60s and 70s, and it's amazing how many of them love crime fiction. And a few of them I've asked about it, like Ry Cooder, Eric Clapton. They all are voracious crime fiction readers, and they always say the same thing, that they like the logic in the stories, they like people in control, and I think it's because a lot of times in their lives they've not had that control. Well, now with ebooks, that question's redundant. You can take 100 books onto the island. No, it's always a very cliche question, Greg, but
Hey, let me just rewrite that first question about you being uniformly a nice guy.
But it's actually a hard one to answer. I guess I would throw out Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, because it is an enormously entertaining book to read several times, and at the same time I've learned a lot. It's a teaching book, so it's been an important book for me on multiple levels.
That is a flawless book. If a studio offered you an unlimited budget to make any movie that you wanted, what would you write?
What would I write, or what movie would I make?
You could remake it, you could write it, it could be something new, it could be anything.
Well, I've been on the show Castle, and I got a SAG card, so I would remake Bullet, and I'd be driving a Mustang.
And you'd have Avion to wash your hair in your trailer.
That's right.
Get the whole thing. SAG card, Connelly. If you won, obviously everything's going swimmingly for you in most every regard, including financially. But if you won like $1 billion lottery, where it was literally unlimited money, is there anything that would change for you?
I don't know, maybe not. I'd probably hire James Patterson to write my books. And go fishing.
What's the quality you most like in a man?
Tattoos. No, I would say relentlessness.
What's the quality you most like in a woman?
Forgiveness. The Lincoln Lawyer is close to me just because I got that idea back in 2000. Again, it's a story of serendipity where I just met a guy by happenstance who worked out the back of, he was a lawyer who worked out the back of his car. But I wasn't comfortable in that world. I was not a lawyer. I wasn't, Scott Turow or John Grisham. So I knew if I was going to write about a character like this, I would have to do a lot of research and get the world right. And so I did that part-time. I kept writing books, obviously, but over about 4 years, I spent a lot of time with a couple of attorneys, and sponged up, or whatever the right word is, soaked up their world and the details of their world, and so it was from the point of getting the idea of the light bulb going off and said this would be an interesting character, to the time I sat down to write that book was almost 5 years, so it had been a long time coming. And then the book ended up being quite successful for me, so I look back at that and think, like, that's a plan. That worked out pretty good.